Hello and welcome to another look at what's on our cultural radar. Joining me is my colleague David Morricone. David, good to see you as always.
Oh, it's lovely to see you too, Togs.
Well,
you're looking delightful. Darling, some may say.
So certainly feeling very good. Despite what's been going on this week, it's been a week dominated with headlines regarding the death of the Pope. Francis, so much interest in his life and what he did. And that interest has also been reflected on streaming sites. Tell us more.
Yes, so this is the film Conclave by Edward Berger, which was released last year, and it recently hit streaming services, Amazon Prime. And essentially, on the day of Pope Francis's death, it went from 1.8 million minutes viewed, and at the end of the same day, it went to nearly 7 million. So it has re-entered the cultural conversation because it's felt incredibly, some might say, prescient, considering the upcoming conclave that we have to look forward to next month.
Okay, and so how close is it then, for people who've not seen it, no spoilers, how can we separate fact from fiction? Does it do a good job?
It does, yes, because it's based on the novel of the same name by Robert Harris, who is very well known for his historical fiction. I'm thinking books like Fatherland or Archangel or even Munich. And he's written two screenplays, both for Roman Polanski, the very underrated The Ghostwriter, and the very overrated An Officer and a Spy. And essentially, the film won the Best Screenplay Oscar earlier this year. And what this film does rather wonderfully is base it all on fact. Now, obviously, it takes some liberties with regards to the plot. You have to keep your viewers entertained. So, like with all Hollywood productions, there's a little bit of stretching of the truth. But there were trips to the Vatican. There's the wealth of research done by Harris. There was also an on-set consultant so that they get the rites and rituals down to a T. So, all in all, it is a very, very impressive tale. And this is one of the reasons why it resonates so much at the moment, because for anyone wanting to look at what happens behind closed doors, this is as close as it gets.
Indeed, well, it's meant to be an incredible drama. And talking about incredible dramas, I know you've also been looking at the small screen again, and we're talking about series here. No spoilers. The Last of Us, please give us a breakdown.
I can't give you a breakdown without any spoilers. So for anyone listening, for anyone watching this, they turn off, because this is not one that's
come back on.
Well, quite. So this is The Last of Us, and because it's based on the 2020 video game, The Last of Us Part 2, what happened in episode 2 is all anyone can talk about, but we all knew it was coming. However, I personally didn't expect it to be coming so soon. This preordained death from the character played by Pedro Pascal, Joel. And we knew that this was a story about revenge, about old sins coming back to haunt characters. But what they've done remarkably well with this episode is you have essentially Mushroom-geddon happening at the same time as this very intimate, character-driven moment, which is almost frame for frame like the video game. They've taken a few liberties with regards to who's with who and who's in the room at which time and, you know, all that. But it's an incredibly faithful adaptation and deeply impactful. And what the show does rather remarkably is it makes you sympathize with the antagonist. In the same way that Joel is our hero, but in the first episode of season 2, you understood that the hero is not always who he's cracked up to be. He can screw up, basically. And here we have sympathy for a character called Abby, who is rather remarkably played by Caitlin Dever. And she is, I mean, it's an Emmy-worthy performance, because what she does in that limited amount of screen time is rather remarkable. So honestly, it's surprising, it's violent, it's visceral, but it's incredibly well judged and really, I think, toes the line really well between being faithful to the original source material and taking a few liberties in order to make it fresh. And fresher did, because essentially it's this year's Red Wedding, essentially, from Game of Thrones.
David, I do wonder how you fit anything else in your life, really, honestly.
I don't.
Yeah, there must be more. But tell me about this fabulous film that I know you've been talking to me about for the last 6 months about, The Ugly Stepsister.
Yeah, I've been chewing your ear off on this one. This was a film which I saw at the Berlin Film Festival earlier this year. It's a debut film by a Norwegian director called Emily Blickfield. And it's fantastic. It was a genuine standout at this year's festival, and it's coming to streaming now, and it will be released in certain European territories in the coming weeks. This is essentially a reimagining of the Cinderella story. What Blickfield does remarkably is deconstruct the myth of beauty and the tyranny of beauty standards. And in this case, it really would work as a kind of a double bill or parallel viewing with Coralie Fargier's The Substance, in the sense that it really reminds you to what extent women will go to in order to please a man in a patriarchal society. What it reminded me of were these American shows like Bachelorette or The Swan, that god-awful show where these women lined up in order to go under the scalpel, and it was icky, to say the least. And here what you get from this film is some squirm-inducing moments of body horror with regards to plastic surgery. You get, and also a tapeworm. I mean, this ugly stepsister will go to any lengths in order to achieve her goals. This, to me, is an absolutely essential watch, because it recontextualizes a story that we think we know, and it forces the viewer to kind of ask themselves questions, not only about beauty standards, about the world we live in now, but also who we choose to dehumanize, who we choose to demonize in these stories, and why. And really, to me, is one of the best films of the year. It's very, very high up there, and I can't wait to see what Emily Blickfield does next.
High praise indeed, David. That's an enormous recommendation for Emily Blickfield's film there. Do go and see it if you have a chance. But let's also talk about the role of women now, but this time from an archaeological perspective, and a new exhibition that's just opened in Naples. Let's hear from the curator.
A Pompei c'era tutto, infatti questo è il risultato di questa mostra. Uno esce da questa mostra avendo visto tutte le tipologie di donne, sia nell'ambito familiare, cioè mogli, madre, figlie, concubine, sia nell'ambito sociale, ingenue, libere, schiave, ingenue, liberte, schiave, sia nell'ambito professionale, perché accanto alle imprenditrici come Umachia, come Giulia Felice, come Asellina, che anche Asellina è un'imprenditrice di se stessa, abbiamo panificatrici, tessitrici, filatrici e abbiamo le meretrici, che sono moltissime a Pompei, come in tutte le città romane.
David, the area of Naples, Napoli, is the gift which keeps on giving from an archaeological point of view, as well as many more. Tell us a bit more briefly about this exhibition on now.
Well, I mean, what's fascinating is that it really does explore Pompeii and this ancient civilization, and specifically through the roles of women, whether it's the priestess, the mother, the wife, the concubine, the slave, the sex worker. And I think to approach that ancient civilization through their roles and through the roles of these two statues that they've very recently discovered is fascinating, and it takes place at Pompeii's archaeological park, and really an exhibition worth going to.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for that, David. Do check out more on what's going on in the cultural agenda. Stay with us on Euronews Culture.